Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramitanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Dvapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Tadavo Benedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Avaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptastakamadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitram Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanadavindam Tove Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Yati Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we are going to begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus. Unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tarasat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, and the same grateful obeisance unto the lotus feet of Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tarasat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Raj, and unto our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga. Okay, so in the last many days we have been hearing about the glories of Srimati Radharani, chiefly from a lecture given in 1998 in Australia by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Raj. Very broad, so many subject matters covered, so many aspects of Srimati Radhika's identity and Mahaprabhu's moods of how he experienced that as well. But always an overview, because as it's been said, these are transcendental subject matters and they cannot really be understood until we also become transcendental. And we're not there yet. However, something is coming into our heart, inspiring us. So now I found something really wonderful. We're going to read an excerpt from the Chaitanya Charitamrta, introduction by our Srila Prabhupada. How does he explain this nature of Srimati Radhika and the relationship and Mahaprabhu? What is the speciality of Mahaprabhu? What does he reveal about the nature of Radha Krishna, Radha, their combined forms? It's very deep. And Srila Prabhupada, he touches on all these same extraordinary conceptions, and yet he's doing it in such a thoughtful way to somehow make it comprehensible to people at large. Because one thing about Gaudiya Vaishnavism is we have a speciality that is actually quite unique in the world of, say, religious study or religious experience, right? That the major religions of the world, they generally fall into two categories, right? Or three. I mean, you could say some are impersonal in their ultimate conception. But those who actually accept a transcendent deity, most are either patriarchal or matriarchal, right? They worship God in a male form or God in a goddess, female form. But that's not the complete picture. The complete picture is that the absolute truth is simultaneously masculine and feminine, and both those qualities together complete the identity conception of the Absolute. Because the Absolute, why two forms? Because what is the nature of the Absolute? It's love. And how is love understood, tasted, experienced? Interaction between the lover and the beloved. And so the Absolute Truth has two features, and love is expressed by those two personalities in the most elevated and exalted way. And the nature of the living entity is that we also have that quality. Because we are part of the Supreme, minute but part, we share the same quality, the aspiration for the experience of love. But as Srila Prabhupada is going to explain, we are trying to taste it by interacting with matter or other conditioned souls covered by matter. We think we're this body, and therefore we're trying to extract pleasure from the body. It's self-centered, seeking. And other living entities doing the same. Sometimes we come together and try to satisfy each other, but because we're covered by a body, gross and subtle, the most subtle part of the conditioned nature is false ego, which instead of linking our consciousness to the divine, to God, and allowing us to exchange love on that platform, it links us, or it directs that idea that pleasure is experienced towards me. I become the object of service. I become the object of love. And so it's very limited, incomplete, unsatisfied, which is why no matter how much material pleasure you get in this world, you're still going to experience threefold miseries, right? Adhyatmic, adhidaivic, adhibodic, miseries of your own mind and body. No one can escape that. Right? There may be some brief time in youth where you're not as aware of them, but as time marches on and the ailments begin to manifest, there's no escaping that. And the mind, its own troubles. So many ways we understand that. And then miseries inflicted by other living entities. You can't escape that. There are mosquitoes everywhere, flies everywhere. Other animals that are trying to eat you, whatever it is, other human beings causing you misery. And then the trials and tribulations inflicted by nature, right? Floods, storms, hot, cold, right? All of that. That's the environment that we're living in. Nobody can escape it. And if somehow or other somebody was able to escape it to some extent, like Hiranyakashipu, right? Control of all mystic power, Ravan similarly, and yet you see in their nature and in their life, they were still always angry, right? And they needed to take intoxication, they're eating meat, and where does anger come from? Unfulfilled desire, right? Krodha bhavati sammoha, right? You just, from unfulfilled material desires comes anger, right? And so they had everything anybody in this material universe could have, and still they were unfulfilled, right? So, and even if you were completely fulfilled, at one point you have to give it up. And that, it might be even more unfortunate, to just think that you have everything in the palm of your hand and then to see it snatched away and you're ripped out of your body. No, I don't want to go. But you have to. So, Srila Prabhupada writes this very beautiful article. It's in the introduction of his Chaitanya Charitamrta. So, he says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu informs us that in every country and in every scripture, there is some hint of love of Godhead. Oh, this is also second chapter of Jaiva Dharma, when Babaji Maharaj is explaining Dharma to Sannyasi Thakur. He's saying that all religion is in some way trying to understand and express the reality, the reality of Dharma. What is Dharma? Dharma is the constitutional nature of the soul, right, in relationship with God, And all religions are trying to fulfill and realize that. But they do that to varying degrees. Actually, there's only one Dharma. There's only one complete spiritual truth, right? And all others are partial and varied representations of that, right? Incomplete. And so we define Dharma as Vaishnava Dharma. It doesn't mean Vaishnava Dharma in the sense of we're Vaishnavas, this is our religion. No. All living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord. All living entities have the potentiality to become fully realized Vaishnavas, devotees of God. So Vaishnava Dharma means that activity, that consciousness, that realization of one's relationship with God, right? And it's most completely and fully expressed in terms of its knowledge, the process, and the ultimate goal in the most confidential parts of the Vedic literature, in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And then the writings of our Goswamis. So every scripture, there is some hint of love of Godhead, but Srila Prabhupada says no one knows what love of Godhead actually is. The Vedic scriptures, however, are different in that they can direct the individual in the proper way to love God. See, this is so powerful. You know, when I come to the West after living in India for so many years, when you preach in India, there are certain things which are understood a priori when you talk to people. It's just understood. And when you come to the West, trying to find the language and Sanskrit terms and conceptions that you can share and speak about, there's a basis. They already have that to some extent. And so, but when you come to the West, you're starting at zero, right? They don't know anything. And it's very hard, at least for me. Srila Prabhupada was so expert at that. And so I'm trying to study him again very carefully. Because also we, you know, after you've practiced for many, many years, you want to share not just the fact that we're not this body and our duty is to serve God, but what are the subtle points of our philosophy? What are the intriguing, beguiling conceptions that we share and understand? So the Vedic scriptures, however, are different in that they can direct the individual in the proper way to love God. Other scriptures do not give information on how one can love God, nor do they actually define or describe what or who the Godhead actually is. That's a fact. Although they officially promote love of Godhead, they have no idea how to execute it. Correct. Usually, most religious scriptures and the traditions that follow them, their conception of serving God is good conduct in this world, good morality, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, you know. Don't murder people, don't perform adultery, don't covet your neighbor's stuff. You know, basic moral guidelines. Don't bury your female children if you're, you know, from the Islamic tradition, that kind of thing. Just be a good person in this world. And service to man is service to God. There's also lots of that in India too, right? Government service is God's servant. This stuff is inscribed in stone so many places. So although they officially promote love of God, they have no idea how to execute it. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives a practical demonstration of how to love God in a conjugal relationship. Taking the part of Srimati Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tried to love Krishna as Radharani loved him. And this is the joining of Srila Prabhupada's, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's two purposes in coming. He came to experience the moods and the love of Srimati Radhika, and in so doing, he taught, right? So you can't separate these two. I remember one time being in Navadvip, and Srila Gurudev would ask different people to speak at different times, And one person one time said, oh, this Yuga Dharma, we don't care for that. This is external. We only want to understand the internal purpose of Mahaprabhu's mission, right? What he came to taste, what he came to love. But from my understanding, there's like chapters of explaining the purpose of coming Yuga Dharma, but Yuga Dharma is not separate because he's saying he wants to give Yuga Dharma for the purpose of revealing Braj Prem. He wants people to taste Braj Prem. And he's coming to taste it himself, yes, but in tasting it, he's also teaching us how to experience it. So the two parts are intertwined. They're not completely separate, and one is not irrelevant. It's just we understand them that the Yuga Dharma is taught in every Kali Yuga, but this Kali Yuga is very special because Sri Krishna himself came in this Kali Yuga as Mahaprabhu to teach the Yuga Dharma, but infused with the opportunity to taste Braj Prem. It's contained in the holy name in this particular Kali Yuga, right? And Mahaprabhu showed that in the highest way. But he was also always teaching. After every Rath Yatra, he was teaching to the inhabitants of Kulinagram and other places. His own ecstasies during the Rath Yatra are used as teaching. Right? Rupa Goswami based so many of his very important verses and explanations on Mahaprabhu's own experiences, which Srup Damodar and Roy Ramananda revealed and explained to him, and Raghunath Das and Sanatana Goswami, and then we have access to it. So, taking the part of Srimati Radharani, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tried to love Krishna as Radharani loved him. Krishna was always amazed by Radharani's love. How does Radharani give me such pleasure? He would ask. In order to study Radharani, Krishna lived in her role and tried to understand himself. This is the secret of Lord Chaitanya's incarnation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but he has taken the mood and role of Radharani to show us how to love Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is saying directly the two are intertwined. He's taking that for his own taste and purposes and to show us, right? Thus, the author writes in the 5th verse, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Supreme Lord who is absorbed in Radharani's thoughts. This brings up the question of who Srimati Radharani is and what Radha Krishna is. Actually, Radha Krishna is the exchange of love, but not ordinary love. Krishna has immense potencies, of which 3 are principal: the internal, the external, and the marginal potencies. Okay? Right. In the internal potency, there are 3 divisions: Samvit, Hladini, and Sandini. The Hladini potency is Krishna's pleasure potency. All living entities have this pleasure-seeking potency, for all beings are trying to have pleasure. Right? Of course, that's our motivation in everything we do. We're trying to find pleasure. No one's seeking pain. Well, there are some people whose psychology is a little mixed up. They seek pain. They seek pain, though, because they experience pleasure in it, right? Masochists. And there are those who will help them in that. You know, they're the sadists, those sadomasochists, right? So, but everything is for pleasure, for the purpose of, you know, some kind of enjoyment. So this is the very nature of the living entity, trying to have pleasure. At present, we are trying to enjoy our pleasure potency by means of the body in the material condition. By bodily contact, we are attempting to derive pleasure from material sense objects. But we should not entertain the nonsensical idea that Krishna, who is always spiritual, also tries to seek pleasure on this material plane. Right? Don't make the mistake that what Krishna's doing, because as we heard yesterday, his Leela, his pastimes are Naravat, human-like. They appear like our pastimes because we are a reflected imitation of the spiritual realm. But his pastimes are of a completely different nature and quality. Right? So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the material universe as non-permanent place, full of miseries. He calls it Martya Loka, right? Place of death. Why then would he seek pleasure in matter? He is the super soul, the supreme spirit, and his pleasure is beyond the material conception. Very clear, very concise. Srila Prabhupada presents this very nicely. To learn how Krishna enjoys pleasure, we must study the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we should study the 10th canto, in which Krishna's pleasure potency is displayed in his pastimes with Radharani and the damsels of Braj. Unfortunately, unintelligent people turn at once to the sports of Krishna in the Dashama Skanda, the 10th canto. Krishna's embracing Radharani or his dancing with the cowherd girls in the rasa dance are generally not understood by ordinary men because they consider these pastimes in the light of mundane lust. They foolishly think that Krishna is like themselves and that he embraces the gopis just as an ordinary man embraces a young girl. Some people thus become interested in Krishna because they think that his religion allows indulgence in sex. This is not Krishna Bhakti, love of Krishna, but Prakrita Sahaja, materialistic lust. Sahaja, it refers to pleasure. It can mean the transcendental pleasure, but when you, and sometimes we just say Sahaja, meaning these people who try to experience transcendental pleasure through material exchange. But the full word is actually Prakrita Sahaja. Created, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada coined that. Material, Prakrita Sahaja. They're enjoying material lust, conceiving it incorrectly that this is a spiritual experience. Right? To avoid such errors, we should understand what Radha Krishna actually is. Radha and Krishna display their pastimes through Krishna's internal energy. The pleasure potency of Krishna's internal energy is a most difficult subject matter. And unless one understands what Krishna is, one cannot understand it. Krishna does not take any pleasure in this material world, but he has a pleasure potency. Because we are part and parcel of Krishna, the pleasure potency is within us also. But we are trying to exhibit that pleasure potency in matter. Krishna, however, does not make such a vain attempt. The object of Krishna's pleasure potency is Radharani. Krishna exhibits his potency as Radharani and then engages in loving affairs with her. In other words, Krishna does not take pleasure in this external energy, but exhibits his internal energy, his pleasure potency as Radharani, and then enjoys with her. Thus, Krishna manifests himself as Radharani in order to enjoy his internal pleasure potency. Of the many expansions, and incarnations of the Lord, this pleasure potency is the foremost and chief. Now he's going to make something very clear. Because we have a material conception, always, of everything, and when we hear about the identity of God as a supreme male and Radhika as a supreme feminine personality, we sometimes look at their activities and try to analyze them from our material perspective. And so sometimes the words for Krishna and Radha are the predominating energy and the predominated energy. And we think, oh, this is a patriarchal concept. The supreme male is dominating the female, and thus, their religion is brought down to this world, and that's why men exploit women, and da-da-da-da-da. And it's not like that. Radha and Krishna are the absolute truth. They are two parts of the same complete whole. It's the absolute truth in two aspects, that the two are required in order for love to be exchanged and tasted on the highest level. But when you read the literatures like Chaitanya Charitamrta, and especially literatures like Ujjvala Nilamani, Vidagdha Madhav, and so many things that analyze the nature of Radha and Krishna in more depth, then you begin to understand that both Radha and Krishna are enjoying unlimitedly, equally, and sometimes the pleasure potency, Radharani, is enjoying more than Krishna, right? Than the Shakti and Shaktiman, which is why Krishna, as the enjoyer, wants to taste the position of Radharani, because he says that. It's described in the fourth chapter of Adi Leela. Krishna's bewildered that she's experiencing so much more pleasure than me. Wait, I'm the object of everyone's service and love. Everyone loves me so much they're all serving, and I enjoy that very much. But it seems that my servants, especially Radharani, is enjoying more than me. What's it like to be her? What does she see when she sees me? Right? What is the joy and the happiness that she tastes? And so he becomes Mahaprabhu. Right? It's very, very subtle and very deep. But Radharani, in the book compiled by Vishwanath Chakravarti called Prem Samput, explains this to Krishna himself. Krishna is disguised as a female from the heavenly planets who says that she's come down to be with Radhika and be her servant, but she wants to know, why would Radhika want to serve Krishna? Because Krishna, sure, he has all good qualities, he's perfect in every way, but there's one thing. He appears to cheat on you. And I love you so much, I can't abide by that. How can you love him? And then Radharani explains something incredible about the nature of love. How it's eternal. And when one has true love for the object of love, even things which appear to be a cause that should break that love, it cannot be broken. It only increases in every instance. And then she goes on to explain something more subtle. While warning that I'm going to explain to you about the nature of our love, prem, you can't really describe prem, nor can you understand it by hearing a description. It can only be experienced. And even if you experience it, then if you try to explain it, it disappears. Yet I'm going to explain it to you anyway up to a point. And Krishna's very eager to hear it. And she says, Krishna and I are not different. Right? Everything that is in his heart, I understand. And everything that's in my heart, he understands. Right? We are like, even though we appear to have different roles, we are like two lotuses coming from the same stem. One is blue, one is golden. Right? But we are actually one in so many ways. And then that point is driven. And whatever Krishna does, he's ultimately doing for my pleasure. And whatever I do, I'm doing for his pleasure. And there's eternal competition to give the other pleasure. That is the nature of pure love. That's also, Ramananda Roy describes that also in the 8th chapter of Madhya Lila. So it's not like our love. Our love is conditional, circumstantial. So he goes on. Srila Prabhupada explains now, it is not that Radharani is separate from Krishna. Radharani is also Krishna. For there is no difference between the energy and the energetic. Without energy, there is no meaning to the energetic. And without the energetic, there is no energy. Similarly, without Radha, there is no meaning to Krishna. And without Krishna, there is no meaning to Radha. Gurudev used to say this. He would say, Srila Narayan Maharaj, without Radharani, Krishna is zero, he would say. He's zero. What can he do? What pastimes can he perform? What qualities does he have? He says, because all of that comes from the energy. Sandhini Shakti is that which creates the bodies of all the eternally liberated souls, the spiritual realm. Everything is resting on Sandhini Shakti. Samvit Shakti, the knowledge of who am I, what is my relationship, what is my service, what do I do? And then Hladini Shakti, the pleasure itself. That's all Shakti. Without Shakti, what is the meaning of Shaktiman? Right? They're intertwined. Without Radha, he says, there's no meaning to Krishna. And yet, without Krishna, there's no meaning to Radha, because without the Shaktiman or the Vishaya Tattva, what is the purpose of the Shakti itself? It's also incomplete. Shakti has to have an object. So, because of this, the Vaishnava philosophy, first of all, pays obeisance to and worships the internal pleasure potency of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the Lord and his potency are always referred to as Radha Krishna. Similarly, those who worship Narayan, first of all, utter the name of Lakshmi as Lakshmi Narayan. Similarly, those who worship Lord Ram, first of all, utter the name of Sita. In any case, Sita Ram, Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, the potency always comes first. And of course, in our practice, we're also worshiping the potency in the form of Sri Guru. Sri Guru, in one sense, the original principle of Guru is represented by Sri Nityananda Prabhu, right? But in the highest sense, the original Guru is Radhika herself. Even Krishna accepts Radhika as Guru. And many quotes about that in Chaitanya Charitamrta. And Krishna tells that to Arjuna also, or Uddhava, in 11th canto. So many ways in which we understand and apply that principle. Who sent Jayanta to Gopakumar? Right? That was Srimati Radhika. Gopakumar says that, right? And in our line, we are Rupa Anugas. Rupa Goswami, who is he's Rupa Manjari, the topmost Palyadasi or maidservant of Srimati Radhika. Right? So our line is coming through Srimati Radhika. Of course, also Nityananda, you can't separate that. Nityananda is Mahaprabhu manifesting himself as the preacher. Mahaprabhu stays in Puri to experience these deep internal moods, but he invests in Nityananda the order to continue preaching this message, and so the empowerment to preach comes from Nityananda. Right? So, and Srila Prabhupada says elsewhere that all of our acharyas, they are empowered representatives of Nityananda or Srimati Radharani. Right? So Radha and Krishna are one. And when Krishna desires to enjoy pleasure, he manifests himself as Radharani. The spiritual exchange of love between Radha and Krishna is the actual display of Krishna's internal pleasure potency. Although we speak of when Krishna desires, just when he did desire, we cannot say. We only speak in this way because in conditioned life, we take it that everything has a beginning. However, in spiritual life, everything is absolute, and so there is neither beginning nor end. It's exactly the same way Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this in Jaiva Dharma. We use these words because we are in the realm controlled by material time, which has a past, present, and future. and we really can't grasp the nature of eternal time, the eternal present. And even Babaji Maharaj warns Brajanath, don't really try to understand it, because you can't, because it's like trying to understand an object by only looking at its shadow, right? If you don't know, if you've never seen, if you've never seen a tree before, say a mango tree. You've never seen it, never tasted a mango, right? And you just see the shadow of a mango tree. And you look at it, and you might get some idea, and it's only a two-dimensional representation, but there's no flavor, there's no taste, there's no color, there's no touch or feel of what a mango's like. None of that is there in the shadow. So our language is conditioned by the limited experiences that we have in the material world. So when did Krishna manifest himself as Radharani? Radha and Krishna are one. They separated themselves eternally. When did the jiva be created? When did he manifest? No. Everything is outside of material time and can't really grasp it. But the language is all we have, and so we do our best with it. We only speak in this way because in conditioned life we take it that everything has a beginning. However, in spiritual life, everything is absolute. And so there is neither beginning nor end. Yet, in order to understand that Radha and Krishna are one, and that they also become divided, the question when automatically comes to mind, right? That's what they always say when we say Krishna is the cause of all causes. Who caused Krishna? They told me that. And then they think, they defeated you. But Krishna's outside time, right? We're outside time. We're eternal, but we're stuck thinking that everything has a beginning and an end. When Krishna desired to enjoy his pleasure potency, he manifested himself in the separate form of Radharani. And when he wanted to understand himself through the agency of Radha, he united with Radharani, and that unification is called Lord Chaitanya. This is all explained by Srila Krishna's Kaviraj in the 5th verse of the Chaitanya Charitamrta. In the next verse, the author further explains why Krishna assumed the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna desired to know the glory of Radha's love. Why is she so much in love with me? Krishna asked. What is my special qualification that attracts her so? And what is the actual way in which she loves me? It seems strange that Krishna, as the Supreme, should be attracted by anyone's love. A man searches after the love of a woman because he is imperfect. He lacks something. The love of a woman, that potency and pleasure, is absent in man, and therefore a man wants a woman. So this is like the reflection, incomplete reflection of the Lord's internal seeking to understand his own pleasure potency. He's not incomplete, but he wants to understand this other aspect of himself, right? Very bewildering. But this is not the case with Krishna, who is full in himself. He's Atmaram and Aptakam. Fully self-satisfied, Atmaram, Aptakam, all his desires are fulfilled. But how? By his pleasure potency. Anyway, thus Krishna expressed surprise. Why am I attracted by Radharani? And when Radharani feels my love, what is she actually feeling? To taste the essence of that loving exchange, Krishna made his appearance in the same way that the moon appears on the horizon of the sea. Just as the moon was produced by the churning of the sea, by the churning of spiritual loving affairs, the moon of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. Indeed, Lord Chaitanya's complexion was golden, just like the luster of the moon. Although this is figurative language, it conveys the meaning behind the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's an excerpt from Srila Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrta. So very interesting insights. Again, special glorification of Radhika, understanding. And this is why Mahaprabhu came, and this is why our acharyas in our line have written and taught. This is what Srila Prabhupada came to reveal, the glories of Srimati Radharani and the glory of that special service, right? This was the unique opportunity in this Kali Yuga introduced by Mahaprabhu. When it says, Unnata Ujvala, first of all, Samarpayatam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Svabhakti Sriyam, he's come in this age, doesn't do it except once in a day of Brahma, to give what has not been experienced at all in this time of, this entire creation, this day of Brahma, which is what? He himself comes, and that's described in the later verse, to taste these things, but for us, he's come to deliver that very rare opportunity to enter into the pastimes of conjugal love between Radha and Krishna, right? But even more so, Swabhakti Sriyam, that bhakti under the guidance of Sri, that special kind of bhakti devoted to Srimati Radhika to please Krishna by pleasing Radha, who gives Krishna the greatest pleasure. Everybody in Vrindavan, everybody in the spiritual realm is striving to please Krishna. All of that tendency, all of that inborn nature to please God springs from Srimati Radhika herself. She is the very personification of Ladini Shakti, that pleasure-giving potency, that inclination to give joy and happiness to Krishna. Right? And so no one can please Krishna more than Radha. Even Krishna, surrounded by unlimited numbers of gopis in the Rasa Leela, if Radhika's not there, then this is incomplete. And he leaves and searches her out. Right? So, if you want to please Krishna, there are so many ways to do it. You can be a cowherd boy, you can be a friend, it could be a cow, it could be a deer in the forest, it could be a bird, it could be a tree, it could be grass to give comfort to their feet. Or you could be like a friend, much more intimate, much more capacity for giving Krishna happiness. You could be a parent. Their love is almost indescribable, the love of a mother to Yashoda. It is indescribable. Srila Gurudev said, I faint, I tremble, trying to think that I could describe this love. But the topmost of all is the love of the gopis. Right? And of all the gopis, the topmost is Srimati Radhika. So nobody can give Krishna pleasure more than her. And so we could take on a role, even of being a gopi, to give Krishna pleasure by being one of his direct beloveds. That's called Sambhog Ichamai, that desire to please Krishna by being one of his beloveds. That's so exalted. But the greatest opportunity of all service is to be a maidservant of Radhika, to assist her exclusively in giving Krishna pleasure. And to be the assistant of Radhika, there could be no greater way to attract the blessings and happiness of Krishna towards you than, oh, you're the assistant of my most beloved, you're one of her dear maidservants. Krishna's love goes to those jivas in such an extraordinary way. Right? And Radhika's own joy that she experiences in serving Krishna is thus transmitted into the hearts of those who are her maidservants. So we're trying to understand the glory of Radhika to awaken that attachment to her to serve Krishna. Right? This is, Kamanuga, but Kamanuga in a very special way. Right? Rupanuga, to follow in the mood of the maidservants of Radhika. And at our stage, Rupanuga means to follow Rupa Goswami, and our acharyas who are in his line, like our Srila Prabhupada, explaining all this, to learn how to become one of them. Right? So we will stop here. This is very beautiful. And there's another article by Srila Prabhupada I'm going to read tomorrow. And there's so much more in this book, Sri Radha, Our Supreme Shelter, which if you want, you can download from Kindle. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to Sri Radha Krishna. And Srimati Radhika's appearance is coming up so soon. We're going to have a wonderful weekend with hundreds of people coming to celebrate and have kirtan. Gaur Premanande Haribol.